You can do the countdown. The
Three,
countdown.
3, 2, 1.
Blast off.
Hello.
Hello. And welcome to A Run with a View. Two babbling movie buffs who think they know what they're talking about and who like to drink rum.
We certainly do.
We
Mhm.
certainly do. I'm Stu.
And I'm Alan.
Alan, what is today's film?
It is one of Kubrick's amazing films and one of his favorites too. It's Doctor Strangelove and
Dr.
how I
Strangelove.
learned to stop worrying and love the bomb.
To give it its seldom used full title, yes.
Indeed.
One of the, no, I think it's probably the funniest film ever made about the end of the world.
Definitely.
uh, re- released in 1964,
Yeah.
and yes,
Hmm.
as you said, directed by Stanley Kubrick, who is
Yeah.
this is the first time we're doing a Stanley
Yeah.
Kubrick film.
That's our first Kubrick, isn't
Our
it? So
first Kubrick,
yeah.
my first
Mm.
Kubrick. He is one of my favorite film directors, and
Hmm.
one of the great American directors.
Yeah.
Actually, one of the great, in fact, one of the great
Indeed.
film directors of any
I
stripe.
think so. Yeah, you could put him in. Definitely, he's one of the best.
Besides which, one of the great American directors, and yet he spent, I think, more than half his life and career living in the UK. But
Yeah,
anyway, uh, so we can sort of claim him as one of ours, I suppose, to a certain
exactly.
extent. Anyway, Doctor Strangelove.
Mm,
What is Doctor
yes.
Strangelove? I hear you cry.
Yeah. Mm,
Doctor Strangelove is an exquisite satire, a black
mm,
comedy about a
very much so.
rogue American general
Hmm.
sending a nuclear bomber to attack the Soviet Union at the height of the Cold War,
Yep.
and the efforts of the US president and the Russian premier to stop it from setting off a doomsday device that will wipe out all life on Earth.
Hmm.
It's a comedy. It takes a certain twisted sense of humor but I think,
Yeah.
we're going to talk, we're going to come onto that in a minute. I mean, but you
Mm,
wanted to say something about the background of the making
yeah.
of the film, and about
Well,
how the sort of how the idea came about in that
exactly.
era,
So,
in that
so we've got to
Cold War.
remember, yeah, this film came out in 1964, and its release date was actually changed, and I'll get to that in a moment. But you've got just to give you, our audience is a bit of a background of what was happening in the 60s. Was so in this is post-war, the end of end of World War II, and we're right in the heart of the Cold War.
Sort of
All right,
nuclear, what's it called,
the threat of
well,
nuclear war was very
the threat
real.
of nuclear war.
April 61, you had the Bay of Pigs, which is where America tried to take over Cuba to stop missiles being placed in Cuba. And
Cuban
then, of
Missile
course,
Crisis, yeah.
in 1962, in October 1962, you had the Cuban Missile Crisis, which is the closest we have ever come to nuclear war so far.
So far, yes.
The film came out, was originally due to come out in 1963. So that's how close this film is to the real life events that were going on. That's
Al-
basically what I'm trying to say.
almost ripped from the headlines in a way, at
Yeah,
the time. Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So when Reagan became president, once he was inaugurated, one of the first questions is, "Where's the war room?" And they said, "We don't have a war room." He said, "But I saw it in Doctor Strangelove."
I feel like Stanley Kubrick's films aren't known for their sense of humor, but all of them, all of his films have not necessarily full on comedy, but they have
Hmm.
humor in them.
Oh,
Absolutely,
very
often very
much so.
dark.
Very. So,
So
am
it's
I going
because
to redo this
this is a
stuff?
very funny,
Yeah.
this is a very
Hmm.
funny film, but it's also very bleak.
It's very
But a lot of the
bleak.
humor is a lot of very bleak.
Yeah.
Well, we'll find out how bleak when we get to the ending.
Hmm.
Not yet, but nearly.
Yeah.
Uh, but a lot of the humor is quite subtle, like to the point where, well, I mean, the Reagan story. I mean,
Hmm.
that. I wonder whether did he even realize it was a comedy?
Well, no, I think most
I mean,
people did
he thought the
realise it
war
was
room
there
was real,
were a
yeah,
lot of
but
people, but that whole because it felt so real. This is the whole thing about Kubrick. Kubrick's such a brilliant director because he throws himself into whatever he's trying to work with and becomes virtually an expert on it. He
yeah,
just
yeah,
reads and reads it. He just read and read
for
and read and got
years.
so much information before going on to do a project. So, yeah, that's why so many of his films look so realistic because he's done so much research about it. And he was always, everybody knows this, that he was so pernickety about accuracy on so many things. The black glove that Doctor Strangelove wears in the movie is actually a leather glove from Kubrick's. He stole it off of Kubrick. Now, the reason had Kubrick had these black gloves is because he was so hands-on about lighting in the movie. He would wear black gloves so he wouldn't burn his hands on the lighting, setting it all up. So he'd
It
always
was
have a
adjusting
pair of
bulbs all
yeah.
the
He's
time.
constantly adjusting it just in the way that he wanted it. So that's how much of a perfectionist this director was, and yeah,
One of those filmmakers who would do it all himself if he could. Like
exactly.
James Cameron,
Yeah.
he's another
Well,
one of
he
those,
did
isn't he?
produce this film and he wrote it and he directed it.
Co-wrote it.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
co-wrote it, produced
And
it,
directed
and
it, produced
directed
it.
it. But the original release date for this movie, yeah, you know it and I know it, but basically it was originally dated for November the 22nd, 1963. And anybody who knows their good history knows what happened on that particular day in Dallas, Texas.
Aldous
So,
Huxley
Stu,
died.
yeah, no,
Oh, sorry.
no,
Yeah, President Kennedy was assassinated.
he
Yes,
was
yes.
assassinated on the day that this film was due to be released. So they very obviously rushed it and changed it. And yeah, it was then re-released on January the 30th, 1964.
I don't know about you, but I heard a
Mm.
lot about it before I ever saw it. It has a
Oh,
reputation that
definitely.
precedes it, doesn't it? I
Massive.
don't I
Yeah.
don't even remember when I first saw it. I think it's probably about 25 years ago when I was trying to
Mm.
catch up. I was on a run of trying to
Yeah.
catch up with classic movies that I'd never seen. And I think I might have watched it on a DVD around a mate's house at 2 in the morning
No,
or something stupid
exactly.
like that. And probably kept falling asleep knowing me.
Mm.
Do you remember your first time?
Ooh. It was quite some time ago. I do remember watching it with my dad because my dad was like, "You've got to
Why
watch
do all of
this."
your why do all of your personal history stories start with I watched it with my
Well, no,
dad?
because
Your dad has
look,
excellent taste.
well, yes and no. It was quite good. Yeah, he did. Yeah, I
Only
mean,
so far. We
yeah,
haven't got to the crap ones yet.
again, it was this kind of like this classic. It was on BBC Two on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon or
Yeah, yeah.
whatever, and I've just walked in, and he's like, "Sit down, you're watching this."
But these are the
But
ones that have stuck with you apparently because
oh
we're
yeah,
doing episodes on
definitely,
them. They're on our little
exactly.
list or our
They
long list.
certainly are. So yeah, these are ones
Interesting.
that I call now, I didn't know if it was a comedy at this point. I think I'd actually recently watched oh what's that cartoon film? Was it When the Wind Blows?
Oh yeah,
It
yeah.
was the
From the 80s, the
couple.
Raymond Briggs book, but
Yeah.
based on the Raymond Briggs
Um
book with the old
exactly.
couple in
So I
the
hadn't not long
nuclear bunker.
watched that. So give you an idea because that was shown on TV when it was
Right.
released, I think, because it was such an important film.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I remember seeing that, and this is in the days where sort of duck and cover was still a thing that was being taught at schools, even though it's
Yeah.
supposed to hide
Pa
underneath your desk if
Painting
there
your
was a
windows
nuclear and
white
stuff.
and all that's rubbish. Yeah.
Exactly. So nuclear, the threat of nuclear war was very much real for me when I was growing up in the 80s.
We
So
thought it was gonna there
yeah,
were things we thought it would probably happen at some point.
no, exactly.
And
Um,
and now there's a great generation of kids growing up with the same, 40, 30 years
yeah,
younger than us or whatever,
exactly. So
growing up with
to
the same thing.
who was co-writing it at the time? So it was Harry
Terry Southern
James
and
B.
Peter George.
Harris
Oh, sorry, yeah,
was working alongside with Kubrick because they both read the book Red Alert by Peter
Peter George.
George, which
Yeah.
is the original idea of this movie.
Which was a
And they got the
thriller,
rights.
wasn't it? It was a straight
Yeah,
thriller.
it was a
Yeah, it
straight
wasn't a
thriller.
comedy.
So they got the rights for this book, and Peter George was involved with the writing of this. And obviously, while they were sort of like going through screenwrites and stuff, it was meant to be a serious sort of kind of semi-documentary drama about the threat of human annihilation. And then when James B. Harris went off to, further his own sort of directing career,
Because
he sort of said
they've been filmmaking partners for a few years, about a
exactly
decade
quite
by this
some
point, I
time.
think. Yeah. Yeah.
So he went off to become a director himself, which Kubrick was like, no, fine, you go ahead. You need to do
Mm.
this. I'll finish this project, without you, but thanks for all the
Well,
work.
because he'd been working with Kirk Douglas on a couple of movies and stuff, hadn't he?
Exactly.
So they were sort of drifting apart anyway, weren't they? Yeah,
But what was quite interesting
creatively.
is while they were working quite late into the night on a lot of the work for this film, when it was supposedly a serious sort of movie, they kind of like got to that point where it's really late in the night, and they're kind of joking around and saying, "Well, just imagine if this was comedy. Just imagine if we could do this, this, and this," and a kind of light-hearted way to make time go by. And then Kubrick sort of like that just really played around in Kubrick's mind. So
Mm.
to the point that when James Harris left and started doing his own stuff, he actually gave him a call and said, I'm going to do it as a comedy. He went, what? You're joking? No, you can't. You can't. It's not going to work. It won't work. And,
Because I'd heard that Kubrick was kind of, he sort of in doing the endless research that you mentioned earlier, that he sort of
mm,
got he just got to a point where he thought, I just can't take this seriously. I don't know
yeah.
how anyone could make this as a straight
Well,
drama.
I think that's
However,
it. Yeah.
however,
Hmm.
however, I got to give an honourable mention
Mm.
to a movie called that probably you've probably seen. I think we may have mentioned it on the channel before.
Yeah.
A movie called Failsafe, which came out the
Yes.
same year, a
Hmm.
few months
Yeah.
later, I think towards the
Hmm.
end of the year,
Well,
which
yeah.
was exactly that. It was a
Hmm.
straight version of the same story, the same premise, I should say,
Yeah. Hmm.
exactly the same premise, but done as a straight drama with like Henry Fonda playing the president
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
I've got loads of great people in the cast. And it was directed by Sidney Lumet, who did
Yeah.
12 Angry Men, who was
And yeah.
late of this parish,
Hmm.
and that's a good film as well. I mean,
No, yeah.
it's not as good, it's not as daring or bold as
Mm,
Doctor
no,
Strangelove,
no.
but it is a good film in its own right.
But
And it's,
it
I think
gives you an
it deserves an
idea of
honourable mention at
what it
least.
could have come out from. And
Yeah,
actually, Kubrick took out legal action for that film production. So they were forced to delay the release of that film because otherwise that would have come out just before um, Doctor Strangelove.
kind of got overshadowed in
It
the
is a
decades
shame
since.
it
So
did get
people don't
over.
really
It
know
did very
about it.
much
They
get
know
out.
about
Yeah,
Doctor
exactly.
Strangelove, but they don't know
Yeah.
about Failsafe, which is a
Mm,
shame because it's worth checking out. The,
mm.
the 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 main sort of tone of the film is kind of it's bludgeoning irony, isn't it? It's
It is. It just
yeah, from the
slaps you
very
in the
start. I
face.
mean, at the Air Force base where
Mm.
the road general is posted, he's there's a big sign on the wall that says "Peace is our profession." There's
I
things like
love
that.
that. I just
Ripper, the general whose name is Ripper.
Yeah, no,
He says
Jack D Ripper,
Jack D
Jack the
Ripper,
Ripper.
Jack D Ripper. Uh, he says, he's sort of banging on about he hates communists and that's part of his
Mm,
paranoid thing. He's part of his paranoia, and he says like he's always going on. He starts going on about how communists don't value human life like we do, and yet he's the one starting the fight.
right, exactly. Yeah.
And speaking of fights, the
Hmm.
great thing where the two guys are having a bit of a barney in the war room, and President goes over and says, "Gentlemen, you can't
Gentlemen, you
fight in
can't
here.
find
This
in
is the
here
war
at the
room."
storm. That's a
Um,
classic.
I love that when we're in the bomber in with the bomber crew
Hmm.
in on the plane, they're sort of they going when they get the message, they get the sort of red alert, or not the red alert, that's
Yeah.
the name of the book. When they get the go ahead to drop the bomb at this
Mm.
target, they're like, is this real? Is this a loyalty test? Is it this? Is it
Yeah.
that? Is it they go through every really meticulously go through every check, every book, everything they've got on board really
Yeah.
carefully with a fine tooth comb, and yet they're doing it at the behest of this whim of a madman.
Yeah. Exactly.
And of course, I mean the ultimate
Mm.
in bludgeoning irony
Mm.
is the end of the film
Yeah.
where We'll Meet Again plays over a montage of nuclear explosions
Good.
and the
Yeah.
nuclear holocaust and the end of the world, and we're all dead.
Hmm. Yeah.
I mean, that's irony. That's poking the eye, really,
Mm.
isn't it? We've established that Stanley Kubrick just couldn't take it seriously,
Mm. No,
or not seriously
exactly.
enough to play it straight, anyway.
Yeah.
Uh, but I was wondering when I watched it, whenever it was yesterday, or rewatched it. I've seen it a few
Mm.
times, obviously. Is it all meant to be funny? Like, is there some sympathy for the
Oh, of
devil in there? Like, for example,
course there is. I think
by the
that's the
way,
whole point of
I've
all
got a lot of it.
satire.
I've got a
Yeah.
lot of these.
Hmm.
But no, what I mean is though, like, is it because often with satire, it's like you laugh, you're laughing at everything, and it's
Yeah.
but I think there are things that, like for example, Ripper when he takes his own life. I mean,
Mm.
it's kind of portrayed as an honorable death.
Yeah.
Or you could read it that way, I think. And the bomber crew, as soon as they realize or establish that the message is real and the orders are real, not one of them ever sort of questions it. They never say, "Are we doing the right thing?" That they just it's an unquestioning sacrifice, and
Mm.
that there's kind of and in both cases, I think there is kind of a nobility in that.
Oh, exactly. I think certain characters, like the captain, the British RAF captain, is
Yeah,
obviously trying to do what he can to stop this horrific thing from happening.
yeah,
As you said
definitely.
about you kind of like the death of Jack the Ripper towards the end, where he shoots himself, where he can't live with the thought of what he's done. What the horror he's created onto the world. But then also it's a more of a cowardly way out because obviously he knows he's going to get tortured for the codes, where he could just gives them the codes.
Yeah, yeah, he knows that as well.
So
He knows, and he's talking about the afterlife. He's talking about like
mm,
I'm gonna go and face my judgment or whatever, and
yeah,
will I be able to do it with my head held high? Do I feel that I've done the right thing? Yes, I do. And it's like, I guess, I mean, well, yeah. So I suppose actually there's a nobility in what he thinks he's being noble, I suppose,
yeah,
but actually, as
Lee,
you say, that is probably better than what they can do to him. So yes, it is. In
yeah.
this case, it is the coward's way out. So
I
yeah,
think I
that's
think
interesting.
also
Irony again as well between his what he thinks he's doing and what
mm,
how it looks to us, really.
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, some of the other, I think that they're the most sort of like more straight-laced acted characters than some of the others. I mean, in the war
yeah.
room, apart from the president's like keeping that kind of lid and not allowing
Mm.
things to get out of hand at all. It's a brilliant portrayal of what a president would be trying to do in that sort of situation. I think that character's played almost as straight-laced as you could probably make it.
I think most of them are really. It's just the situation makes them look ridiculous, doesn't it?
Exactly, that
What
is
they're
the
having
point
to
of
do,
it.
the obstacles they're having to overcome, is what makes them look
But that's the
ridiculous.
greatest idea of this being the satire. The whole point
Mm.
of nuclear war is stupid.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
complete annihilation. What is the
yeah,
point? But then the idea of the nuclear bomb was to don't threaten us because we can just annihilate you. And
yeah.
if we
Mutually
annihilate
assured
you, you'll
destruction, isn't
annihilate
it?
them. So
Yeah,
it's a pointless and futile exercise
yeah.
in our gun's bigger than your gun.
Cinematography by Gilbert
Mm,
Taylor. The great Gilbert Taylor. He did
mm,
loads of films: Ice Cold in Alex, Hard
yes.
Day's
Oh
Night,
yeah.
Propulsion, Star Wars,
Mm,
Flash Gordon.
and,
Loads of
yeah.
classic movies that you've seen.
Hmm.
Um, I've noticed a couple of sort of main uh patterns. Like I
Mm,
noticed that the scenes of like actual violence, or the closer we get to actual
mm,
violence in the
yeah.
film, they switched to a sort of verite documentary kind of style, like
Hmm.
because of course Stanley Kubrick's
Yeah.
background was in documentary filmmaking as well as
Yeah.
photography before that, magazine photography.
Mm,
While the talking scenes tend to be more sort of mannered and stylized. So like
yeah.
the actual when I say actual violence, I mean like the closer we get, like the attack on the base that they
Yes.
sent
Yeah.
troops to attack the
Well,
base and get
exactly.
the
Yeah.
recall codes from the
You're
general,
not
and
getting. Yeah.
the scenes
Hmm.
in the bomber as well.
Yes.
Oh,
Hmm.
they all look very documentary, don't they? Like you're in there with them,
Yeah.
shaky
Exactly.
cam and all that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting. Yeah. So the attack on the compound when you're seeing all the soldiers turning up and shooting at each other,
It
it
looks like a
does
documentary.
look. It does. It looks like you either watching it or it's almost like a news report where
Newsreel, yeah, yeah.
exactly where it's
Cafe.
like happily stuff is happening and you all can see is the backs of soldiers because they're not on the front line but
Yeah,
they're
right over the
just
shoulder
behind the
camera,
front line.
yeah.
So yeah,
Very
absolutely.
un-Kubrick actually, from what we later
Mm,
understand. I mean, that's
um,
the funny thing because he started out in documentary, but his films became, as they went on, they
yeah.
became more and more stylized, didn't they? Another thing I noticed in the sort of visual um strategy was because Kubrick often uses, well, later on especially, but I think he'd done it before this as well. He often uses like a 1 point perspective, doesn't he? Like
Mm,
head on shots. The
yeah.
famous thing of like the you put my elbow in my drink. The famous thing of like the close up of an object or a character's face,
Mm,
and then it sort of the dollies out to kind of like to see more
mm,
of the image around them. Opening shot of Clockwork Orange, famous
yeah.
example.
Hmm.
All that 1 point perspective stuff going down corridors, going down,
Hmm.
in The Shining, all that kind of
Yeah.
thing. It's a very Kubrick thing. He sort of abandons it in this movie in the more
Yeah, exactly.
because
It doesn't
it's
it
more like
doesn't
it's more 2 or 3 point perspective where the corner of the room is like low angles looking up at the ceiling. The corner of the room is up in
mm.
the corner, like it's a more warped view of humanity.
Yes, exactly. And I think he's done that on purpose because I mean,
Mm.
yeah, if you're not a Kubrick fan and you watch this, you
Kubrick
wouldn't
nerd.
necessarily know that it was a Kubrick film because it just doesn't look as much like the others. But in some ways,
The later
I think
ones, it
the
doesn't. Yeah,
later
it's just
ones.
sort
But
of
if you
yeah.
notice all the different sort of like if you think of how it's all breaking down, we've got the war room scenes, we've got the cockpit scenes in the bomber
Mm.
scenes, the war room scenes, and of course the the base scenes.
Which is
So
all offices mostly, isn't it? And sort
yeah,
of
and it's just
rooms with
offices. So you
computers in or
notice they're all
desks. Yeah.
very distinctly different from each other. So
Yeah, they look very different. Yeah.
they always look different because obviously they're portraying different characters, different aspects of the film, and different roles, different life aspects, and what's going on in the situation. So
Is there
like,
anything different about how they're actually shot and lit and stuff like that?
yeah, I mean they are
Because I
different.
noticed like
They're all
light sources are often on the
it's
screen, which is
brilliant.
quite an
And
unusual
Kubrick's amazing.
technique in those
We'll
days.
start with the War Room because that's it's the
Yeah,
classic.
that's the
And
yeah.
to be fair, I must say this: when we went to the Design Museum, we saw that Kubrick exhibition. I did almost
Oh,
wet myself when I saw the little the scene
oh,
set up of the
the
War
model was
Room.
it a
Yeah,
model?
the model
I
of the
don't.
original War Room. I was like, oh my God,
Yes,
and
I think I
almost
do remember that bit. Yeah,
it was
yeah. It's a few
beautiful
years
to
ago
see
now.
that. Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
It was
that
an
was great.
amazing exhibition. I'm so glad we went because it was just
Mm,
absolutely incredible to see. I mean
brilliant.
that letter that he wrote to IBM about Hal was just I had tears in my eyes after reading that. It was beautiful. Anyway, we're digressing. But yeah, the war room, if you notice, is actually in a triangular shape, so it's not a square room. It's a so the
Yeah.
ceiling is sort of very cut
It's
off.
it's almost wedge shaped, isn't it? Like
It's wedge
it's got a
shaped to
low
make
wall
it
at one end and a big
yeah,
wall at the other end.
and it was
Thin
done
end of
like
the
that to
wedge.
make it almost look like an underground bunker to make it look,
Yeah. Well, it is
it's
probably supposed
yeah,
to be
it
that.
is.
Yeah.
But the lighting, the whole ring, that massive light ring going
Yeah.
around and lighting up the table, and then the light source being the big board, the map.
But the lights at the low wall at the opposite end as well. They kind of you
Yeah,
see the sources, but and like other hazy, like it's like it's almost like the camera. It's almost like the filmmaker has put himself in the. It's literally
mm,
shining a light on these characters, illuminating their stupidity. Like it's trying to make it really obvious that we're shining a
yeah.
light on
And
how
also
stupid we're
the
being.
choice of the flooring as well, because if you notice the flooring is really shiny, and that was done on purpose so the lighting would reflect back up, so you could use minimal lighting and maximize reflection.
Yeah.
But it was a matte reflection, so you could actually light everybody without there being sort of bright lights and spots everywhere. So the weird quirk of the film, what you don't see is most of the actors in that scene are all wearing slippers,
Oh,
so
in the
they
war
don't
room.
scratch. Yeah, so they don't scratch the floor.
Another, I mean, one of Kubrick's favored techniques
Mm.
that he does use in this is long takes.
Yeah.
It often does long takes where not so much
Mm.
cross cut, not so much cutting back and forth, not so much shot reverse shot. It's mostly kind of long takes of a cut.
Yeah.
But I think it works because it lets the comedy sort of play out
Oh,
in the course of the
exactly.
conversation,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
And
The actor's timing dictates the pace rather than the editor sort of thing.
yeah, and you see that more with the kind of
Not
scenes
always,
on the
but
base in the office, when you've got
yeah,
the RF captain and
Mandrake and
the
Ripper.
general
Yeah.
Ripper. So yeah, you get to see much longer takes in there, and again, it's not so closed in. Which
Mm.
is what you see more on the plane, because obviously in the plane it's much more urgency, what's going
Yeah.
on, it's more dramatic, so you get
You
much
get
more
more of a sense
closer,
of
tight
confinement, don't
shots,
you? Yeah,
confinements,
yeah.
much different. Yeah, but again, that's what you want from a good filmmaker to say, right, this is this part of the story, and this is this part of the story,
And to
and
tell you
you know,
without telling you, to show
show
you,
show you it. Yeah,
it's a visual medium. It's art.
exactly.
It's composition.
And that's why he's so
Speaking of
bloody good at it.
compositions, I've
Mm,
got a few that I really like. I mean, when we first see General Turgidson, played by George C. Scott, and we're going to talk about the
yeah.
characters later, as I said,
Mm,
but he's like when we first introduced to him, he's in a sort of hotel room or something,
yeah.
or maybe a whatever bedroom with his secretary, and
Tree.
it's like the room is like
It's
uh, uh,
mirrored. Yeah,
they're all, every wall, maybe even the ceiling as well. I'm not sure, but the walls
yeah.
certainly
All the
are
walls are
all mirrored.
mirrored.
So you got well,
Yeah,
that's like infinite point perspective, isn't it? It's like
yeah.
but it's it's like and they're like they're having like they're dressed casually because they're having an
Hmm.
affair. So like she's in a
Yeah.
bikini and he's in like
Hmm.
a Hawaiian shirt and a pair of shorts because they're in the
Hmm.
middle of they've just been having a nice time, and it's all like. But it's a time of crisis, and it's like the first
Mm.
time we see them is in such an undignified way, and it's like I think, but they're all surrounded by mirrors that are reflecting their own ridiculousness back at
Yes.
them,
Yeah.
but they can't see that, it's
No.
it's really cool. um I liked the shot where I've got a couple of shots involving General Ripper. There's one where
Mm,
he's talking, one of the many conversations he has with Mandrake when they're locked in the office,
yeah.
and he sort of sits on the sofa right next to him, and he
Mm,
puts his arm around him
hmm.
like really tight.
Yeah.
And then in the background, it's like, which is uncomfortable enough, but
Exactly. And
like
he's
on
talking
in the
about
background on the wall
fluoridation of
behind
water.
him,
Yeah.
I was talking about, yeah,
Yeah.
fluoridation, and
Hmm.
they don't drink water, they drink vodka,
Correct.
all that kind of thing. And he's sitting there, he's got his arm right around like,
Mm.
and then behind on the wall behind him, did you notice? It's like, I don't know if it's actually a row of guns or just pictures
Yes,
of
yes, this
guns,
is
and they're all pointing right at Mandrake's head,
head.
and
Yeah,
beyond that, Ripper's head, which is like a bit of
exactly.
foreshadowing. So it's like a pincer movement
Yeah.
of foreshadowing. I also
But yeah,
like that
there's
again.
a selection
Sorry.
of weapons from the Civil War, so from the American Civil War.
Oh, is that what it
That's what
is on
they
the
are.
wall?
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense because he talks about redcoats and that as well, doesn't he? And I know not Civil War, that's Revolutionary War, but yeah, he talks
Yeah.
about the redcoat. He says the redcoats are coming to a British officer. Yeah,
It,
it's
it
pretty
was a
funny.
collection of Civil War and the War of Independence as well. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
both, big points in American history. So
yeah, yeah. So
yeah,
it
but
nothing as true as this is of any film.
mm,
It's doubly true of a Kubrick film. None
yeah.
of it is by accident.
The General Ripper is when he's going off and he's talking about, his essence and his
Yeah,
fluids being stolen. That
because
there's a
that's his whole thing, isn't
wonderful
it? Is the communist infiltration by making us, they're getting into our water and our
so
milk and our food, and they're
food.
making us into communists like them. They're poisoning us, they're infiltrating us, and through our
Exactly.
precious
And they're
bodily
not.
fluids. The band
And
is
when he's going off on that speech, it's so well, beautifully shot. It was an upward shot with the dark background behind him, so the light is
yes,
just on one
and
side
the
of his
cigar sticking out
face,
of his mouth
and the
all the
cigar stick, and
times.
he's just so beautifully shot. And actually, it reminded me.
Because we see him a few times. Like when we
Mm,
first see him, he's like right in the distance in his office, like shot from a long distance in his office from the door or whatever, with a really
yeah,
long lens. And then then we see him from above, so he looks kind of weak and silly. But then
exactly.
finally, like you say, we see him shot from below to make him look, which normally means it is to make characters look strong, isn't it,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
powerful, or heroic.
Um,
But in this case, it makes him look scary.
it was noir-esque of those
A
particular
little bit,
scenes,
yeah. There's a
and
bit of
also
touches of that, yeah.
some of the cockpit scenes, some of the plane scenes looked, because you're limited with lighting, just because of
Mm.
the factualness of if you're in a plane like that,
Yeah, the
there's not going to
verite
be a lot of
style,
light. You
yeah.
need the lights for the
It just got the
instruments and
overhead.
what you're doing, and that's it. But it makes it look very noir-esque,
Mm.
which I've really enjoyed as well. So,
I like there's another lovely shot later on. There's a couple
mm,
of good shots of Strangelove himself.
mm,
One of them which is sneaky and one of them which isn't. The
mm,
non-sneaky one, I'll explain what I mean in a moment. The non-sneaky one, towards the end of the film,
mm.
yeah, I'll get the spoiler card out.
Yeah,
Just,
yeah.
towards the
I
end of
think
the
you're
film,
gonna.
the moment.
Hopefully, you're going to talk about the scene I'm thinking you're about talking about, but we'll
Well, it's not
find
a
out.
scene. It's not a scene. It's a
Okay, the
specific
shot.
shot, but it's a moment in the film where they've got the recall codes. They've
Hmm.
withdrawn all the bombers but one, which of course is the one we've been following all the way through the film,
Yep.
and they're all like sort of celebrating, or well, thank God for that. Thank God we've sorted it out.
Mm.
It cuts to a shot of Strangelove on
All
his
on
own,
his
still
own.
in the war
Yeah.
room,
Mm.
over on in completely in silhouette, except for one
Yes.
sort of light on his eyes.
Actually, what it is what it's beautifully done, and I would love to know
Is
how
it more
Kubrick
complicated than
did
I
this.
thought?
This is exquisite. This is beautifully done. So yeah, as you're right. Strange Light is in the dark, but he's not fully
And it's sort of full
silhouetted, but
body
he's
shot, isn't
in
it,
the
as well?
dark. You can see
Yeah.
him, but he's fully in the dark, so you can't see his face very well.
But
But
he's in
what you
silhouette, isn't he?
can
'Cause there's light
see
behind him. Yeah.
is the light that's reflected from the room is the light is reflecting almost the lenses of his glasses. So those round
Oh,
lenses,
yeah.
even though they're dark glasses, the light is reflected off the edge of the glasses. So you've got this kind of really thin light just around his glasses, but the rest of it is in dark. And again, his
So,
wheelchair is slightly illuminated, but
so
he's
it's
not. And it's so beautifully
so
done.
it's not. Is there not? Do you think there's not like a vanity light just on his eyes or something like that? It's
Possibly,
literally just a
yeah.
reflection. It
No,
could
no,
be
no,
that.
no.
Wow.
It's
It's
done
even.
deliberately to get
Oh
that
yeah, no, of course
ring
it is. But I
around, but
just.
I don't know how Kubrick did it because it's exquisite. But then of course he moves forwards and then gets fully illuminated as he moves forwards.
I don't know how
Um,
Gilbert Taylor did it. Credit where it's due. Speaking of Doctor Strangelove himself,
mm,
I mean, it's not properly introduced until the third act, really.
no, no.
But I never noticed this before. Tell me if you did. An earlier scene, like in the first act, probably when they're all sitting around the war room and Turgidson is talking to the president,
Hmm.
and they're sort of like, and there's a shot of Turgidson, George C. Scott, sitting sort of, fairly in the foreground, and then you can see like he's sitting at the table, so you can see like a sort of. Let me see if I can do this on camera. So like a sort of the people sort of
Semicircle.
go the
Yeah.
semicircle like beyond him,
Yes. Yeah.
uh, and they're just in the background. I never noticed until
Mm.
this time watching it. Doctor Strangelove is in the background.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's right there. I don't know
Mm.
if it's actually Sellers himself or if it's a
No.
stand-in. It could
It's.
be
I
Sellers. It
think
could
it's
be
a
either
stand-in.
because
I think it's a stand-in because
he probably
obviously
wanted to
when there
talk
were
to have.
probably yeah doing those scenes between those two
Yeah.
characters, and obviously Peter Sellers in the makeup for the president, and just had like a it looks more like a stand-in. I know what you mean. And it's quite interesting with
But he's got the
those.
glasses and the hair, so
Yeah,
it's obviously meant to be
exactly.
him. It's quite a distinctive
You can
looking
tell it's supposed to be
character.
Strangelove, but he's just sitting
Yeah.
there silently, just taking
Well,
in what's
if you
going
notice
on.
it, which I didn't until just now.
Mm.
Yeah.
But the other thing that is quite intriguing about that whole scene of the war room in general is how many people actually sat round the table.
Got to be 30 or 40, isn't it?
Exactly. But then
Yeah.
how many people actually talking and interjection and giving information about what is
Most of
going
them are
on?
just
It's quite,
sitting there listening,
yeah,
aren't
exactly.
they? Most of
It's
them are
like
filler. Yeah.
the
That's a good
boring
point. Yeah.
bureaucracy of power of like so many
They've all got
people
to be
there,
there
but
because that's their job, I
exactly,
guess.
even though
Yeah.
they can't physically do anything or say very much. But yeah, the bureaucracy says they have to be there.
And also because it looks more important if you have more people, it looks more
Mm,
sort of serious. But then again,
exactly.
well, because it's a
Mm.
big room and you can't have a big room and a big table with only
Yeah,
five,
it
six
would
people
look
sitting
really
around it. It
weird
would
to
look
have
really
in all
shit.
that
Yeah.
space, just have a tiny little table with six people around it.
When most people close their eyes and think of Doctor Strangelove, the first thing they think of is probably the War Room.
Yeah, exactly. It's
When
so,
we think of,
in some ways,
in
so
fact,
iconic.
I mean, it's
Um,
just so, it's just so memorable. And like, in fact, I'll go you one further.
mm,
When we think of politicians sort of hiding themselves away because they only started the war, as Black
yeah,
Sabbath puts it. Um, Again, that's what we think of. We think of
yeah.
underground bunkers,
Well,
and this
yeah,
is what we have in our mind's eye. And it looks like I read somewhere that it was. You probably know this already, but I read somewhere that even though the film's in black and white,
mm,
Kubrick had the table that they all sit around covered in green baize, so it looked like a poker table.
yes,
So
yeah,
it looked like they were playing
exactly.
poker.
Yep.
I think of the war room as like a big a womb, like a big
Mm,
safe, cozy womb.
yes,
You've got this
exactly.
hazy lighting around the edge. You've got the sort of you've got this sort of the big you've got this yonic symbolism of the big ring of lights keeping them
Mm,
warm and watching over everyone,
yeah.
and then like at the end, well, I'll do the spoiler thing.
Mm,
When the end sort of comes and Strangelove reveals his big plan of having like a nuclear bunker, like
hmm.
even further underground,
No,
penetrating
yeah.
even deeper into Mother Earth.
Mm,
How small must his penis be? Like it just like this kind of idea of of just a safe space to escape from
yeah.
the disaster that we've wrought on the Earth.
Mm,
Which we're not gonna stick around and deal with it. We're gonna hide from it because we're. I was gonna swear then, but I'm not gonna say anything.
mm,
Let's just say it was a big nasty swear word that
mm.
you don't want to say in front of your kids.
On the bomber scenes, because obviously, doing shots like
The
this,
B-52, yeah.
B-52 bomber, that they could obviously get sort of like shots of B-52s flying around and that sort of thing, but not with certain backgrounds. So
Oh, the
that's why
visual
it's
effects
kind of it
shots,
looks
yeah.
really weird with the bomber being sort of cut out and the background. So it does look a little bit disorientating when you're
I think
watching.
it looks pretty good actually for the
It
time.
does
I think
look
the
pretty
visual
good for
effects are
for
pretty
its
good.
time,
Wally
but
Vivas.
it
Yeah.
was background the background shots, the outer shots
Oh yeah,
were filmed by Kubrick and their team. So they basically took planes up and
the cameras,
got
yeah.
background shots of being, and where they actually shot it was northern Canada and over
Yeah.
Greenland. And as we well know, there is an American US base on Greenland. And what they didn't realize is they accidentally flew over the airspace of that military base. And then suddenly they had fighter pilots either side of them and forcing them to land, which they had to do in Greenland. And they were like, yeah, you got to land now or we'll shoot you out the sky. So they did.
Like
And
that bit in
then,
X-Men 2 with the Blackbird.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the crew was actually interrogated for being Soviet spies. But that's the outside of the plane. The
Yeah.
inside of the plane, because obviously they wanted to film inside a B-52 bomber, and the US Air Force went no, no chance. You know, you
A
could,
Russian might see it.
yeah, exactly. You can have the
Yeah.
outside because those shots. So the shots of obviously the planes refueling and stuff. They were,
Oh, the opening.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah. We'll
um,
come on to that in a minute.
they were open source, so that no problem getting hold of those. But the interior shots of the B-52 bombers, basically, they had to make up. And when Kubrick did his research, and obviously we know Kubrick is a stickler for detail as much as he can.
Mm. Oh yeah.
So point
Oh yeah.
when the film came out, or when it was sort of like shown to sort of like test audiences and other bits and pieces before its main release, it started an FBI investigation because they actually thought they got inside a B-52 bomber because it was that accurate.
He's too good at
It's
his
too
job.
bloody
This
good.
is this is why people idiots think he faked the moon, filmed the moon landings.
Exactly. Mm.
There's a couple of nice. I haven't got too much to say about editing, but there's a couple of nice cuts that I liked. There's the
Yeah.
hard cut from Ripper
Mm.
when Ripper and Mandrake are in the office hiding out the office, and the army guys are outside trying to shoot their way into the base.
Yeah.
And Ripper does his big speech about how he sort of I do he's talking about his bodily fluids and all that again,
Mm.
and he says like, yeah, I enjoy the company of women, but I do deny them my essence. It cuts is a hard cut from
Yes.
him talking about denying them their essence to outside and guns going off, like
Off. Yeah.
spraying their essence all over the bloody shop, which I thought was quite funny. But let's talk about the script. It was written by, as I think we
Mm.
said, it was written by Stanley Kubrick
Yeah.
in collaboration with Peter George, who wrote the original
Yeah.
novel, and
And
also Terry
Terry
Southern.
Southern.
Now he's an
Yeah.
interesting
Mm.
character. He's a sort of a counterculture figure. He worked on things like Easy Rider and
Hmm.
Barbarella. I think he co-wrote as well.
Hmm.
So he was kind of, I mean, that was later on, but he was kind of he was part of the, I think he was part of one of the Beat writers, or he was affiliated with the Beat writers, I think, and
Hmm.
the Beat generation. So he's kind of and the he was sort of had a strong sort of anti-authoritarian and
Mm.
anti-establishment streak,
Yeah.
I guess.
Hmm.
And that's and you can see that influence going
Definitely.
through the
Yeah.
film like a stick of rock. The
Mm.
structure of the script, I mean, we've kind of talked about this already, but there's three main um locations that it cuts between. You got to sort of end on a good punchy moment before you cut to the next. Say you're in
Yeah.
the war room, you want to finish the war room bit
Well,
on a
but
memorable thing, and then cut to the
yeah,
bunker or whatever it is, or cut to the
exactly.
bunker,
But
cut
it's
to the
it's
bomber, and then
it's
cut to the
keeping the
whatever.
continuity of the topic that they're trying to discuss. Like, oh, we're
Yeah, keeping it
saying about
thematically connected,
exactly. Yeah.
narratively connected. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you got like first one is Burpelson Air
Mm.
Force Base, which is where the General Ripper has locked himself away with
Yeah.
his XO, Lionel Mandrake,
Hmm.
of the RAF. You got the War Room, which we
Hmm.
talked about, with President Muffley and his Joint Chiefs of Staff and the Russian ambassador all kind of responding to the crisis. The kind of control center, the
Hmm.
kind of not that they've got much control over it, but again, irony. There's the control center, but they've got zero control over what's happening. And then you've got the B-52 bomber carrying the actual weapon,
Mm.
piloted by a character called Major King Kong.
Kong. I know. Brilliant
Major
names.
Kong, ground control,
Yeah.
Major Kong.
Kong.
He's really made the grade. So I'm just thinking of this now. I'm
Mm.
just trying to impose a sort of id, ego, super ego structure on it. I wonder if that's like, I wonder if the id is the sort of the bomber, the ego is the control, is the Air Force base, and the super ego is the war room. I don't know.
There's a lot of
Any
egos.
Freudians
There's some
or whatever you
massive
want
egos in this film anyway. So yeah, I mean,
I mean, the dialogue is
mm.
it's a lot. It's very funny.
Hmm.
It's endlessly quotable, and it's
Yes.
mostly underplayed. You don't tend There's not too
Mm.
many sort of, the only exception I can think of to that, and it's almost, for me, it's almost a little bit too much, but maybe not, is
Mm.
when towards the end of the scene with Turgidson and his secretary, Miss Scott, when he tells her he has to leave, we'll be back later, and
Yeah.
don't, because she's like, hey, don't go, I'm just getting started. She's
Mm.
kind of, she wants to carry on, she's feeling all amorous, and he's like, I've got to go, and I gotta go to work, baby, that kind of thing.
Mm.
And he says something like, well, you just start your countdown, and I'll be back before you can say blast off. And when he says blast off, he actually pulls a face like,
Mm.
which is probably the most over the top bit in the entire movie, really. Well,
Yeah.
apart with the exception of the entire Doctor Strangelove character, but we'll come on to that in a minute.
With all comedies as well, as we all know, sort of ad-libbing comes in. If you've got any serious good comedians, there's going to be an element of ad-libbing
Like Peter
as well,
Sellers.
like massively from Peter Sellers. There was an interesting quote I heard from someone about Kubrick and scripts. So Kubrick didn't use the scripts like a blueprint, more like a menu. So I think it's a lovely
Okay,
term.
interesting,
So yeah,
interesting.
you've got this blueprint of obviously the structure of the scripts and what they want to get
Yeah,
across, but they're allowing people to go, right, okay, I like this bit, I like this bit, let's play with this. Kubrick would allow the actors to actually kind of play around with lines. He wouldn't be. It's kind of seem weird to say it's about Kubrick because you know how much of a control freak he was.
Do you think it's true of? Do you think it's true of all of his films, or just because it was Peter Sellers? Because Peter
I think
Sellers, of course, was a master
very
improviser,
strongly
and
for Pete for the sake of Pete
and he
Sellers.
worked with
So
Peter Sellers before as well, and he
exactly
knew
with
what he was.
Lolita, with
Yeah,
Lolita,
yeah, he
he
knew what he was dealing
massively
with. Yeah,
ad-libbed during that, and I think
yeah.
that is how we got how they actually came thought of using him for Doctor Strangelove.
Because
He
you would
was
never
just
think, from
mm,
Kubrick's reputation, you would never think that he would allow anyone to ad lib anything in his
no,
films. You would
exactly,
think it would
which
be
I
like,
think
no,
is really quite
you say what's on the page and
yeah,
like it, sunshine. But
exactly.
have you? Do you have any? I've got a few sort of favorite lines from the movie, favorite lines of
Mm.
dialogue. I mean, I like uh I think
I tell you one
one
thing.
of my favorite, and they're not always
Okay,
obvious. I mean,
yeah,
you can't fight in here. This is the war room. That's the
yeah,
big line
yeah.
that
It's a
everybody knows, and
brilliant.
it is
Yeah.
great and it is funny.
Hmm.
I won't say any more about that because I don't want to spoil it if you haven't seen the movie. Otherwise, you'll be
Mm.
watching it going, thinking like you're going and watching it, go, oh, that's funny. There are a couple of lines that are a bit less obvious. I thought I like the bit where Ripper and Mandrake are talking
Mm.
about just before Ripper goes into the bathroom.
Hmm.
They're talking about. He says like during the war, the Second World War. He says like, were you
Hmm.
ever captured by? Were you a prisoner of war? Yeah. He says I
Yeah,
was a
yeah,
prisoner of war, and Mandrake says yes, I was
yeah.
too. Yes, and he's sort of distracted, and he's sort of like being very English
Mm.
about it. Like, yes, I was. Yeah, yes, I was in the
Nice.
prisoner of war. Yes, they had me working on the railways or something.
Yeah.
Whatever. And he said like. And he says like, did you? And General Ripper says, did you talk? And Mandrake says, "Well, I don't think they really wanted me to talk. Actually, I think they were just enjoying, enjoying it for its own sake. The swines." The funny
Mm.
thing is, the strange thing is, they make such bloody good cameras. For some reason, that
I do.
line just really
I know.
tickled me. And also, any of the lines with Colonel Guano, who is
Mm.
the officer that
God,
comes in at
that's
the
great.
end and gets Mandrake and like tells him he's gonna, and Mandrake's trying to call the president, and he's like won't
Yeah.
let him get the money out of the Coke machine. He
It's
has to
in. Is
shoot the
it?
Coke machine, and he says like, and he shoots the Coke. He says like, okay, I'll get your money for you.
Mm.
And I'm going to shoot. I'll
But
shoot the
if
Coke
you're
machine to
wrong,
get a quarter because she needs a quarter to make the call to the
yeah,
president. He needs to get the money. He hasn't got enough change. Can I make a what do you call it? A trunk call? What do you call
call
it?
it. Yeah,
I don't know. I
collect
don't know what
call.
you call it in America. I don't, all this kind
Yeah.
of thing. But he says, "Can you shoot the? Can you just shoot the Coca-Cola machine? Just shoot the Coke machine. Use the bullets. That's what they're for. You twit." It's so good. But he says like okay, I'll get your money for you, but you're gonna have to answer the Coca-Cola
Call
company.
company.
It's just
It's brilliant. But I mean, because
you're a deviated prevert.
also
What are
one
your favorites? But
I
apart from the
think
obvious ones that we've
my favorite, and is the phone call with the president with
Dimitri,
Dimitri, the Russian
Dimitri,
bridge is so beautifully done.
the whole conversation. Do you know
The
what?
yeah,
I'm
it is
just
ad
before you
libbed.
start, I'm just going to
Oh,
say this
yeah,
book,
yeah,
my complete Kubrick book from 2000. So it has got the complete Kubrick because
mhm,
he died in 1999.
yeah,
Has got like it's got a chapter on each of his films, and
mm,
it has like memorable quotes, kind of like what they now do on IMDb.
yeah.
So it's got memorable quotes. The entire phone conversation with the Russian premier is in the book.
Yeah, and it's
Carry on.
ad libbed.
By
That's what's
Sellers.
even brilliant.
I can't say I'm
Sellers,
surprised.
exactly. He was just like,
Yeah.
I've got an idea with this, and Kubrick go for it. Just go with
Because
it.
he
Yeah,
gets on the phone to him before he's get put, because the Russian ambassador is sitting
it's just
next to him.
there.
The Russian
Yeah,
ambassador puts him
that's
on the phone and he
scripted.
says, "Mr.
That's in the
President,
script. Yeah.
I think he's drunk."
Yeah.
And then
Dimitri,
Sellers is like,
Dimitri,
"Okay, Dimitri,
and it's just the tone that
you're
he's
coming
with.
through fine. Yeah, you're coming
I'm
through
fine
fine.
too. We're
I'm
both
fine too.
fine.
We're both fine. It's good to be
We're
fine.
fine.
Yes, thank you."
Well, we talk if there's
The
ever a problem
possibility
with
of something
the
going
bomb,
wrong with the
wrong,
bomb.
wrong. And
Well,
it's
we
just
have a
yeah,
general,
yeah.
and in one of our bases, and he went a little bit
Bit
funny,
funny
and
in the head.
funny. I'm gonna stop doing this
Yeah,
because
I
we're,
neither of us
we're
could do Sellers
Peter
well,
Sellers.
so
Can you hear that noise? Can you hear that noise? That's Peter Sellers rotating in his grave at like
no
Mach 4.
spinning. He's yeah.